Mark Ting is our guide to personal finance. He's a partner at Foundation Wealth, and he joins us every Thursday. One listener wrote in after meeting with a financial advisor and developing a retirement strategy. They were concerned about the amount of changes being recommended. Mark is here to take us through that story. Hi, Mark.
Hi.
So why was this listener hesitant to follow his financial advisor's recommendations?
So I guess the relationship was quite new. They've only been together for about 6 months. And as you mentioned, changes. It was a pretty dramatic change from what he was used to. And people just don't like change. I mean, he's quite older too. He's 65 years old. So even then, the hesitancy. So he reached out to me and he's like, I just want a second look. Do you mind looking at it? And so I did help him out.
Okay, so you went through, and did you see any red flags?
So I'll preface this by I wish I could do a super in-depth analysis of everybody who sends me their financial plans, and I did not do that.
You're not doing that,
no.
To be clear, yes.
But what I do is I generally look at the front couple pages, I skip all the analysis, and I go straight to the recommendations. And when I look at the recommendations, then I have a pretty good idea whether this is a legitimate financial plan or not. And what I saw was pretty good. And the one thing that sort of stuck out to me was something called a pension income credit. So a pension income credit, as the name suggests, it's a tax credit that you get when you get pensionable income. Now, he was 65 years old. He was working. He didn't have any pensions. So the fact that a pension income credit was on this recommendation was good. Now, how does he get that when he doesn't have a pension? Mm-hmm. So the recommendation was he takes part of his RSPs, he converts that to a RIF, he takes money out of his RIF, and RIF income is considered pensionable income, at which point he would get the credit. So at the end of the day, if you didn't understand that whole link, he saves $300 in taxes a year just by doing this. It doesn't really cost him anything. And if he has a spouse, he can actually double that. So that recommendation was good because it's not something that everyone knows about, and it takes, second thought, outside the box thinking to actually recognize it. So just me seeing that made me think that, okay, he's probably good.
I don't know what a RIF is. It makes me think to some degree it's quite something that you need someone sometimes to help you get all that figured out to get that benefit.
It's when you convert your RSPs. You have to convert it to a RIF, and RSPs is when you put money in to save for the retirement. RIFs, once they convert, you have to take the money out. Okay. But it's taxable income.
Okay. So I guess in this case, this person appears to be dealing with someone with a good reputation, doing good work. But let's pretend that wasn't the case. What are some really easy to detect red flags that people need to be watching for?
So the main red flags that I see is of huge concentration on the product. If I see a plan and it says, look, had you had this product, this investment, this mutual fund, this ETF, and if you had it over the last 5 years, you would have made so much more money than what you currently have. That concentration on the product means absolutely nothing to me because that was the past. Unless you can tell me what's going to happen in the next 5 years, it's almost meaningless. And of course, the person who's preparing the plan is doing it with the benefit of hindsight. So if this person got, option A, then they can choose any option that's better at it, and they look better. So that's another red flag. Another one would be insurance. I see a lot of people push insurance products when they're beginning. And the reason why is because as a salesperson, the commissions are very high. This happened to another listener of mine. She contacted me a year ago and she asked, hey, I'm just starting out. How do I invest? And I suggested at her age bracket and the amount of money she had, super simple, super plain vanilla, low cost funds, and just let it run, let compounding do its thing. And then she contacted me a year later and she's like, I think I made a big mistake. And the big mistake was a quote unquote advisor convinced her to buy an insurance product, which she didn't need. She didn't have really beneficiaries that needed insurance at this point. And the type of insurance was quite expensive, as well as to take that low cost investment and turn it into something that was quite high cost. She went from paying about 0.5% in fees to over 3%, which is extremely high in our industry.
When you talked about a flag around someone recommending a specific product, I thought you might say, because there's also some commissions. Mm-hmm. And that we need to watch out for that if that's not necessarily the right thing for you, even if your advisor gets a commission. Does that happen?
No, it's not like commissions aren't necessarily wrong. It's not the way I do things. I generally prefer like fee-based, like low fees. And you also don't want to choose the cheapest option out there because on the investment side, is not necessarily like, do you go for the cheapest doctor or the cheapest car? Like sometimes there's added value, but you need to get good value for your money. And what happens is sort of the bigger, more prominent, more qualified advisors, what ends up happening is they have clients with larger money, and they end up charging less in terms of fees than people with smaller clients. And the reason why is the people who don't have a lot of experience, they often deal with people with less money, charge them more because they need to make as much money. So economy of scales, that sort of thing. So it's kind of unfortunate, but that's why a lot of the sort of bad advice happens on the lower end of the spectrum.
Well, Mark, it's nice of you to be responding to people's emails the way you do. So thanks so much for coming in and telling us about it today.
No problem. Thank you.